When the holidays start to feel a bit repetitive, reach for a Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry and put your twist on tradition. A bold cranberry and winter spice flavor fusion, Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry is a refreshing way to shake things up this sipping season. And only for a limited time. Sprite. Obey your thirst.
In Walmart's Nouville, time was ticking away. Only a few nights left till the big holiday. But last-minute gifters had no need to worry. Walmart Express Delivery got their gifts in a hurry. From Nintendo to Nespresso and Lego flowers, they could check off their lists in as fast as an hour. All of Nouville, East, West, South, and North, could order gifts up until 5 p.m. on December 24th. So this holiday, just do as the Who's do. With gift delivery this fast, they all gasped. From Walmart? Who knew? Subject to availability, terms and fees apply.
I am Diane Lucas, and welcome to Abstract Essay, where ideas take shape, thoughts find depth, and every conversation explores the art of thinking beyond the obvious. And today I have my special guest. She's a best-selling author, speaker, and of course an author too, and the author of the latest book, The Art of Lies, no other than Miss Nancy Napier.
Good to see you.
Welcome, Miss Nancy on Abstract Essay. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I missed?
Sure. Well, I'm very happy to be here. I appreciate your inviting me. I have been a business professor at a university for 35 years, and in the last few years, I'm becoming a fiction writer in training. So I'm learning about how hard it is to write fiction compared to academic articles and books. And I'm having a great time. It's tough, but I'm learning, and I hope I get better each time I write a book. This one takes place in Vietnam, where I have worked for 30 years on and off with a university over there. So I know the Hanoi area very well. I know a lot about Vietnam and its culture and many wonderful people who I've been lucky enough to work with. So it takes place in Hanoi, and it deals with art fraud. That's
Art
a little
fraud.
introduction there for you.
Yes, and thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. Hoping for more and more empowering books like this to come. The Art of Lies. What is the spark of inspiration that first led you to write this book?
Good question. I learned when I was writing another fiction book that I need to start with something that's a real situation, a real story, a real event. And for this one, it was reading about an art exhibit in Saigon, in Ho Chi Minh City, the south part of Vietnam, several years ago. It was an exhibit of paintings that came from Europe. They had been held by collectors there and never been seen in Vietnam. So the paintings returned to Ho Chi Minh City Museum down there. And it turned out after a few people began to see the paintings that several of them were considered to be fake, counterfeit. And I thought, what an intriguing thought. How do you put on an exhibit if you discover, or you need to discover, whether they're all authentic? And that led to a lot of reading about the world of counterfeit art and so many other things, everything from documents and books and papers and so much in the art world that can be real or fake, counterfeit. So anyway, that was the initial inspiration for the book. It is about a woman who desperately wants to become a curator of the museum where she works as a business manager. She doesn't get the job, but her boss asks her to put on an exhibit similar to the one I just described. So paintings coming from France, painted by Vietnamese artists, but the paintings have never been in Vietnam. So as they arrive, there are questions about whether some of them may be counterfeit, including some by her own great uncle, a very famous artist. So she has to figure out if these are counterfeit, who's behind it. Does she tell the director they need to pull the whole exhibit, stop it? Can they take out some of the paintings? All the while, she's facing pressure from her father, especially, to maintain the family's reputation and legacy of the famous artist uncle. So she's got personal friction inside her family. Let's keep this quiet. Of course, they are real. There's nothing counterfeit versus what's the right thing to do for the museum and for Vietnamese art in general as it becomes more famous on the global market. So she doesn't want fake paintings out there and people to not believe in Vietnamese art.
Miss Nancy, crafting the story, can you walk us through your typical writing process? Do you outline carefully or do you prefer to discover the story as you write?
Well, that's one of those questions that there are really people on both sides, aren't there? And I, being an analytical business professor, I am finding as I'm learning how to write fiction, I do need to have some sense of an outline and a sense of direction where I'm going. Now, it doesn't always work because things will change. But what I am learning is that I need to have some pathway I can follow. Might go in some different directions, but I need to have something that I'm aiming toward the end. I also find that the notion of place, at least for this book, was very important to me. One of my goals after working in Vietnam for such a long time is to help people who have not traveled there, don't know much about it, and many older Americans who might think of it as a war. I want to help them understand that it's more than a place of war. It's more than an exotic vacation. It's just a wonderful place with so many good people. So I want to convey a little bit of the sense of the place of Hanoi, of the culture, and some of the people. Now, none of the people in this book are real, but I know so many folks that I can draw on some traits or characteristics of them. But back to your question, I really do try to have a fairly clear sense of where I'm going. Many years ago when I tried to write fiction, I did an online class, and I finally said, I can't do this. I'm not a good liar. And one of the other participants said, well, it's not lying, it's your imagination. And so I take that now and I can use it as part of the creativity, but I have a hard time coming up with something really interesting just from my imagination, which is why I go back to stories that have really happened in the news. So that provides the basic structure, and then I can play with the characters and come up from that point, that starting point. Then I can come up with more twists and turns. But I like to have a basic trunk of a tree and a few big branches, and then I can go from there to start building in more of the leaves and the color and the rest of it, using that kind of a metaphor.
Miss Nancy, were there any scenes in the book that were particularly difficult you to write emotionally or technically?
Not difficult. Well, she deals a lot with her father, and so she is a good Vietnamese daughter and wants to follow her father, which is important there. Family Confucianism is so important. And yet she's also a divorced woman of a 12-year-old son, and so she's more independent. So writing those push and pull on her was a bit of a challenge, I think. She finally reaches a point where she thinks her father may be guilty of some art fraud, and so she has to wrestle with what do I do? Do I turn my father into the police? Is there another way to do this? So those scenes were, I think, more difficult to write, just because anytime you put family, history, legacy against something bigger, that is so hard for people to sort out, I think. And so it was a little bit hard. Otherwise, the some of the scenes, for some of the same reasons, scenes with her boss. Again, he is a very directive person, and in Vietnam, bosses typically can tell people what to do, but here she is as an independent woman, and so she's tugging at how much do I follow tradition and how we have lived as Vietnamese for a long time versus starting to become more independent, have to think about myself, have to think about my son and his needs. So that was another one that was sort of push and pull. And I guess finally would be her relationship with her mother. She doesn't fully understand the mother. Her mother tries to reach in emotionally a bit more than the father, but she doesn't fully understand, and she reaches a point where she doesn't know who she can trust anymore. So all those, to write them in a way that you don't give everything, all the clues away too early, that was an issue that I had to learn how. I'm still learning as I'm writing now another book. Where do you plot these cues? How do you have a dialogue that could go either direction, could be lean one way or another, and I don't want people to understand it all until the end. They can say, oh my gosh, that's what that particular dialogue was all about. So I think I feel like I'm rambling a little bit, but yes, there are difficult scenes. I'm a writer friend of mine calls those the beast scenes. So which ones are hard, either technically or emotionally to write, and they're the ones that you tend to procrastinate on. And so I finally just have to sit down and say, no, you can always change it. Get it down, but you can always change it.
Yes, definitely. And how many draft or revisions did the manuscript go through before it felt finished to you?
I would love to know how people answer that question. I have written, I do a lot of short pieces, 500-word blogs and newsletters. I used to write a newspaper column. So with those, for 200 to 500 words, I could go through 10 or 12 drafts, and I did it very quickly. And so doing multiple drafts has never been a problem for me. On a book this big, there are sections that probably I rewrote 20 to 30 times. So when I hear, I think Hemingway once said he wrote one paragraph 26 times. I get that. I understand that. So I'm not sure I could say full drafts, start to finish, how many there were, but easily 10 to 20. And as I say, some sections more than others. But I'm learning right now. I'm in the middle of starting to revise the next book. And again, I'm trying to become more efficient at that process. So there are many different approaches to revising. And I'm trying to follow a couple of them this time to see if I can make it a little bit more efficient. But I think I will always have many, many, many drafts, because I really don't. Some people write and they want a page, a chapter to be perfect before they go to the next one. I just have to get the ideas down. I have to make sure that the story makes sense and follows through and has a good structure. And then much later, I can get to the point of changing words, adding ideas, adding more color, more information about the place. Those are really small and late in the process. But the first go through for a revision really has to be, does the structure of the book make sense? Does the ending fit? And is there something going on with the key characters where they are believable and making a change in their own lives throughout the book? So I don't know. What do people say to you? How many drafts do they write? What's
They
the most you've
usually
heard and what's the least you've heard?
they usually ask or tell me that they are 15 or 20.
Okay, good. So I'm not too
Yes,
far away.
not too far away, Miss Nancy.
That's
And
interesting.
And what message or emotional truth do you hope readers would take away from The Art of Lies?
The question we talked about a minute ago, of when you're pulled in two or more directions, or you're pulled to, I want to do something that protects my family or me, my reputation, versus what's going on in a bigger setting, the bigger picture, something that may be right for the organization, even though you might get hurt in the process of telling that truth. In this case, it's what's right for the museum she works for, what's right for the Vietnamese art market, and all of those artists who want to sell their own goods and not find out that they're being copied, versus her family reputation, legacy as being a very artistic family. If her uncle's paintings are fake, does she say that to the world, or her father wants her to keep it quiet? So the bigger message is what so many people in business, in any profession, any job, any person living life can face. What's best here may not be best for this other piece. And so it's just really hard to decide what you're going to do in that situation. So she has to go through that as well.
Miss Nancy, what kind of research do you do to understand the psychology of lying and weave it into your narrative?
Yeah. I again, I was a business professor for a long time, so I could live on doing research and never actually get down to the writing part. It's so interesting. So I guess I read generally three types, or went for three types of research. One was really about the whole art world and the art market, and I was lucky enough to talk to several artists in Vietnam and gallery owners about this question of authenticity in the art there. So the whole art world was kind of new to me. I did more research on Vietnam, and there's in the book, the famous artist spends time in Paris, and it turns out a lot of artistic people, musicians, artists from a lot of different countries were in Paris, France, in the 1920s. So from Cuba and China and Vietnam and America, and they all sort of collected there. So to draw on what that circle was like, what those people were like, that was fascinating. So the Vietnam part, the artist part, and then I read a number of, I had to read a lot about counterfeiting, of course, on the art part, but I read a lot of fiction. There are a number of books out about art counterfeiting, about art heists and thieves taking different pieces of art. So all of those pieces were super helpful. I didn't necessarily use every one of them, but it informed me just sort of how people think in this world, and how do con men and counterfeiters think about what they're doing. So all that kind of research, and then I love talking with people. So I think I talked to several people in the U.S. who are involved in the art world, and then it was so helpful in Vietnam to be able to touch several artists, I forget now how many, who were just super helpful, and then some gallery owners and a couple of museum directors, that sort of thing.
Were there books, films, or other works that influence your approach while writing The Art of Lies?
Well, as I said, I did read a number of fiction books. None of them took place in Vietnam. There were a number from in Europe, in America, and then I think one out of Australia that was similar in terms of how does a gallery owner deal with counterfeits. So that was more the content part of it. The writing style, I read loads of what I call light mysteries. So I don't want to write or read about lots of blood, guts, gore, violence, torture, anything like that. So that type of book, and I tend to, because this one is written in Vietnam, I'm trying to read books that take place in parts of Asia, South Asia, India, or old Ceylon, Sri Lanka, and then Indonesia, Laos, Cambodia. So books that take place in Asia, so I can try and figure out how to capture more about the culture. So those are two. And then the third thing, I don't know that I've captured it yet, but they should be light and funny in parts. So there are places in here where she makes comments or about people or sees things, and so there's a little bit of lightness to it. It's not all heavy. These are decisions I have to make. So there are a number of authors that I look back to who've written in the present day, and then they write about older times, but they do that. It's a light mystery, nothing really horrible to read about. No children die, no dogs die, that sort of thing. So the style is a much more light. I wouldn't call it cozy mystery because it doesn't take place in England with little old ladies drinking tea, but it's definitely not gory or too much of a heavy reading in that regard.
Miss Nancy, looking back now, is there anything you would change in the book if you had the chance?
Oh, so many things, Yeah, I was just looking at it before we talked, and their phrasing and sentences, and I wish I could build up this character a little more better. So yeah, there'll be things always that no matter what I write, I feel that way, and so it's an opportunity to learn how to do it differently, and I hope a little better on the next one, so that I get better at all these different elements of fiction, which that's what has just been so surprising to me after writing nonfiction academic stuff forever. This is so new. Everything from the structure of a story to the characters, to the place, to the dialogue, to the way that the character needs to change over time. Oh my gosh. And there are so many books written about writing, and that's been phenomenal to be able to read those and learn about that. I got started in this long time ago. There's a field called creative nonfiction, and so these are books that are written. They're nonfiction, so it's about a real event, but they use creative writing techniques. Everything from telling stories about the main people involved in this event to using dialogue and making it more suspenseful than an academic article would be. So I came into it sideways and started learning about that. And I've used that in my business writing and my academic writing. But to jump to full fiction and out of your imagination, you may start with something, a real event, but then to take that and build on it, that has been so very challenging. So I think every time I do one of these, or even a chapter, I can feel over the course of the book that I'm trying to improve and get better. And it'll never ever be perfect. I know that, but it's process, and it's a progress, I hope, over time.
Progress for sure, Miss Nancy. And what is the most rewarding part of completing these projects for you personally?
Completing, by the time it came out, I'm already 6 months into the next one.
Oh,
So
wow.
it feels it's great to feel that I've completed it. And I just hope that people enjoy it. That's, I guess, what my biggest hope is always, that you want people to enjoy, maybe learn something a little bit out of their normal fields. But it feels very, very good at having completed now 2 of them. And I think I'll keep going as long as I find something interesting or people are willing to read it. But it feels really good. I've done lots and lots of projects over my professional career, and they always did feel very good to have it completed, even if it's not perfect, but you've done a good job. And my mantra for years has always been to do good work, meaning do work that's quality, but also do something that helps, it is in a positive way, something good. So do good work with good people, learn a lot, and have fun. And so far, I've been lucky enough to have all four of those in this new life of mine as a fiction writer in training. I'm able to do good work, I hope, and I work with a number of good people as I'm doing the research, as I'm putting the book together. I'm having fun, and I'm always learning something. So what's not to love about that?
Definitely. And thank you so much for sharing your.
Thank you so much for the invitation. It's great.
Yes.
You have great questions.
The art of lies, for sure. So, did your own perspective on truth and deception change while writing the book?
My own perception about art fraud, you mean? Or,
Yes.
yeah. I had never realized how many or how some of these counterfeiters do this as a form of revenge. So if someone is an artist and tries to sell paintings and nobody wants to buy them, some of them got very angry, and then they started to copy other paintings and sell them. And so even though their name was not on it, people said, well, these are great. This one is by, give a name of this is Picasso. And the counterfeit artist is saying, no, it's not, it's me. And I'm getting back at you by that. So that did surprise me. It changed my view of some of them. I also was surprised. I have one book here called The Art of Forgery. And that must be, I don't know how many different areas in the world that there have been fake. It's not just art or books, but money over the years. And lots of these that I knew about, sort of, but I had no idea the range, and that it continues to go on. That's surprising to me. And so the notion that still today people are taken in, fooled by pieces of art. The last thing I guess I'd say about this one that surprised me, when I learned in Vietnam that a number Vietnamese people have not had a lot of money for a long time, and now many, many people have a fair amount of money. And so the rich, wealthier Vietnamese bought art kind of to show off. I have enough money, I can now afford to send my children to university somewhere else, and then I can buy art. And so when news of the art fraud started, a number of people didn't come forward. They were embarrassed. And apparently that's not uncommon all over the world. So you buy something, you're so proud of it, and then it turns out you spent so much money on something that's fake, not real. And so the world of art, I guess, the behind the scenes part and the emotional aspect of it, that was also it was something I had never really thought about in those ways. So that was also new.
Miss Nancy, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my Abstract Essay is already in 5th season, Abstract Poetry in 2nd season, and my Book 101 review in 5th season too. Comedy 101 2nd season, and my Food 101 in 5th season as well. Geography 101 in 8th. 4th season, I'm a baby podcast, Law 101 and Mental Health 101, Love Letters in 8th, 3rd season, and my Movie 101 review and Music 101 in 4th season, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in its 1st season.
You are a busy man.
Busy indeed, Miss Nancy. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So finally, Miss Nancy, what advice would you give aspiring writers who want to tackle complex, morally gray themes like deception?
Learn as much as you can, but don't let the research overpower you. Get to writing when you're ready, or when you're almost ready, because we can always do more research. So I would say learn about something that's new to you that can hold your interest for a year or two. Most writers would say, write about what you know. And I'm not doing that completely. So I know something about Vietnam, but I didn't know much at all, anything about art fraud. The last book I wrote, first novel, it was a medical legal thriller. I had to learn all about gene mutation and the legal system here. And so I'd say write about what you don't know, but you want to learn to write about, and have fun. If it's not fun, why do it? So I'm lucky enough that whatever I make on these books, I don't have to make so much that I can pay for my house payments, my rent. Thank goodness. But I'm just I'm amazed at how much I've been able to learn, how much fun I'm having. So go for it. Why not?
Yes, go for it, people. If you have the passion to write, and share to the world, just like Miss Nancy. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So can you please invite our listeners to support all your books?
Thank you so much.
Yes, Miss Nancy, where do people buy your book?
Well, Amazon is the best place right now. So it's just go on Amazon. It's The Art Lies by Nancy Napier. Easy there.
Yes, let's support Miss Nancy Napier, because if you support her, for sure, more and more and more empowering books like this to come. So Miss Nancy, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it.
More to come, people. See you soon.